Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. Rusty and Heather Bryant back with you, and really excited to jump into another summer shorts question.
Yes.
And maybe this one will be short.
Because last week we blew that one out of the water.
The longest episode ever.
Yep.
But my
Yeah.
prediction came true.
It did.
I said at the end of that particular episode that it would be the most downloaded episode ever. Mm-hmm. And at the end of 1 week, it wasn't even close. It was so far. So many downloads in 1 week. So if you don't know what we're talking about, which I think if you're listening to this, you probably listen. You probably words are hard sometimes. You probably listened to it because it felt like most of North America did listen to it. So, and even some of other countries. No, but in all seriousness, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for the comments. It was an episode that we did with our two boys. And so, we're really proud of them. And that a lot of that we were hearing for the first time as well. So it was a little emotional, but so powerful. So please go back and listen to that if you haven't already.
Speaking of the boys, and we're back on video.
We are. I did some work today trying to fix the audio, which last week it wasn't because of audio. That was a part of it. But the last few
We
weeks,
couldn't fit either.
we couldn't
all
fit.
four
There were
of
too
us.
many of us in this little space that we call our podcast nook. And but our audio has been really messed up the last few weeks. But here's the thing. If you don't follow us on YouTube, I know we say this a lot. We say, hey, we want you to follow us because we're going to add some videos and stuff. But we're trying to figure out how. We have like over 100 questions. Maybe, I don't know how many it is. The last time I counted, it was over 100, so it's a lot of questions that have come in the last few weeks for our summer shorts questions. Again, if you have not done that, there's still a few weeks left that we're going to be answering questions. But the questions are so good, I've started thinking, how can we just, answer all of the questions? And so, anyway, I was talking to some video people that I associate with, and one of the suggestions was to do like a weekly YouTube where we just specifically answer a question, but we really make it really short because we're really good at that. We're really good at.
We're really good at summer shorts.
Maybe there'll be spring shorts. How about that? But anyway, we do want to add some stuff. So when our crazy summer ends, we're trying to think through some ways that we can add, especially to our YouTube channel. Heather's getting all excited and interested in like Instagram and stuff. So if you don't follow Instagram, go there because Heather's going to leave her mark there.
I don't know if excited is the word. It seems very overwhelming. I just want to pay somebody to help us.
Oh, well.
With all this money we have coming in.
Now, let me encourage you to make some donations to the Redeemed Marriage. You go to theredeemedmarriage.com.
I just feel like there's somebody out there that knows how to do this.
No, I don't think there are. I don't think anybody. I
And
don't think
follow
anybody
these
knows how to do
people,
Instagram.
And they're like, take your Instagram from 200 followers to 50,000 in 1 month. Mm-hmm. I just need them to tell me how to do it.
Well, but here's the thing. We're not really all... We do want to reach the masses that way because we want them to help. But really, these people that we have a relationship with that communicate with us and we do marriage coaching with and they comment on things or ask us questions and we're able to... Those are the people that's who matters.
I agree. And the question would be, out of all of those people that we have a relationship with, how many of them found out about us through social media?
All of them.
Probably. So I just think it's important, but it's overwhelming. But I also don't want to be that person that's like, I'm almost 50. I'm too old for this. Like, I want to learn. It's just...
Wait, you're almost 50?
Shut up. You're already 50, so don't come at me.
Hey.
So I'm just saying that I feel like I need some guidance in that. Okay, the end.
All right.
What-
Summer short.
Okay, but I was going to say, speaking of our boys, I
Oh,
had to
yeah.
go redo my makeup because we're back on video because I've had a rather emotional day.
Yeah.
Tough day.
We sent one off. We've been
Sent
telling
one
y'all.
off.
Well, we said it last week. We were
Yeah.
like, hey, we had to do
Yeah.
it because one's leaving. So
Send him
all
off
the way
to
across the other side. Hey, if you're
Oregon.
listening to this and you are in the Oregon area,
Send
let
us a question.
Let us know. Send us a question.
We'll draw it.
We will probably draw your name for the double date.
That would be funny. I'm just kidding.
No.
It's going to be totally random.
It is going to be
And
random.
we
We've
have
already
the
talked about it.
We have the risk of, oh my gosh, somebody close to Oregon or somebody right here in Clinton.
Yep, it's fine. But in all seriousness, if you are close to Oregon and you want to reach out to our kid, he would love it.
Yes, reach out.
So
to our
tell us, and we'll help make that connection for you.
Yes.
Okay, let's do the question.
This week's question, I had to read it a few times. I was a little, like I wanted to make sure I understood it. But first of all, it's from Pennsylvania. Is that
PA.
is that near Oregon?
Oh my, y'all. I am really sorry. Here's the thing.
I shouldn't say things
Here's
like
the
that.
thing.
out
We're
loud.
really good at marriage and marriage coaching.
I'm good at math.
Not so good at geography.
Okay, where is Pennsylvania?
It's as far away, almost as far away as you could get from
I knew
Oregon.
that. It's up there by New York. Okay, I knew that. Because don't we do counseling for somebody in Pennsylvania? Or
I
no,
don't know.
it's
I don't
up
know.
there.
But
It's
we've actually gotten a lot of questions
Okay,
from Pennsylvania. We may have already done.
rewind. I know we don't edit, but shoot, I wish I could edit that out because I actually do know where that is. I do. I just didn't think before I spoke.
Hey, don't worry. I'll edit it out.
Oh.
Okay. If you're watching on YouTube, you see me winking because there's no chance I'm going back and editing that.
Okay, here's the question. I have a question. Our marriage seems to be constantly struggling. My wife is always hurt by things and constantly feels disconnected. I don't feel any of those things. So, of course, that creates a problem. Either I have a major blind spot or my wife has a problem. It seems to me that she self-inflicts a lot of these things. Everything seems fine to me, but it obviously isn't because she struggles. Why does she feel hurt and disconnected when I don't think there is a reason? Now, we cannot pretend to know why she's hurt.
Right. Can we summarize that question? I think to summarize that question, it is this. My wife, no. Summarize it like this. My spouse thinks that something is wrong with our marriage, and I don't think that.
Yep. I think everything's
So
fine.
what do we do?
And to be fair, there were some similar questions when you summarize it in that big of a question. I mean, like that broad of a spectrum. Then I think a lot of the questions that we read through actually can fall into that. And I will say that was part of our story before infidelity. It was, I would complain about things and, I'm not happy and this is frustrating and I don't feel fulfilled and there has to be more. And you would be like, I think everything's fine. I don't know that I did say that, but not all the time. I would just hint at that, I think.
Yeah, and when we were talking about this, I said I think the reason why it's important for us to address this is because I think maybe the majority of marriages, they go through bouts of this from time to time where one spouse is like, I don't feel connected to you, or gets really frustrated about something and hey, we're having problems, or I'm not happy, or whatever, and the other one's like, what's wrong? Like, I feel like everything's fine. And so I feel like to answer this question, it really is probably hitting a lot of people. To go back to what you were saying, though, it's really hard for us to answer this because we don't know the situation.
Sure.
So it's not like we can, based on this question, we can look at it and go,
Well, she's not happy
oh
because.
man, yeah, it's her fault. I mean, she needs, or man, you got to figure out what you're doing wrong so
Yeah.
you can fix the problem. It's not that easy because we just don't know the situation. So one thing is I would say, everybody's circumstances are different. For you guys, in your circumstance, it may be that you need some outside help for
Sure.
one thing. Maybe you need counseling. Maybe you need some type of marriage coaching. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we love, listening to people and what's going on, and then we're able to kind of help them and roadmap through. So this is definitely not a advertisement for our marriage coaching, but something like that might be helpful because it's an outside source that's taking a look at what's going on in your marriage and maybe is able to point out, hey, this is kind of the root of the problem. So that's one thing I would say. But then I would also say, let's go back to you, and then you can continue what the line you were going down. This was us in a lot of ways, because if you guys will remember parts of our story, the day we went to marriage counseling after Heather confessed to infidelity, the counselor said, "What has been the best year of your marriage?" We were so angry with each other, and we were so mad and hurt and devastated, all that kind of stuff. And he was trying to take us back to a good place. And so he said, "What was the best year of your marriage?" Well, we were on year number 15. And I said, "Well, I thought it was year number 15. And that was the truth. Now, looking back on it, I know all kinds of stuff. But at the time, that's how I felt. I was like, I thought everything was fine. And yet you were in the midst of, the betrayal. And so all of that goes and points back to this, that, yeah, there's sometimes it is really easy for one spouse to be like, I thought everything was okay. And the other one to be like, I'm not happy. I need more connection, all of those things.
Well, one thing I do want to say is I do admire, well, first of all, I admire both of them. I admire that he is reaching out and saying, I want to help this and I don't know how. I also admire that she has used her voice to say, I'm unhappy and we need to do something about it. So, they both could be very just sitting back and letting things roll. But I do appreciate the fact that they've both, spoken up and been like, we need help with this. So the fact that she, he does use the words constantly saying, that I'm not happy. And, as I read that, my first thing I wanted to say was, and we say this all the time, it's not up to him to make her happy.
Good. Yep.
Her joy, your joy, if you're listening, has to come from the Lord and has to come from what you're doing in that relationship with the Lord and the relationship of your marriage.
Yeah, because you say all the time, and we say all the time, that there's a spot in your life. There's this God-filled, a
God-shaped.
void that's a God-shaped
A
void. Void.
A void.
A void. There's a
Gotcha.
hole. There's a God-shaped hole that only God can fill.
Yeah.
And again, that's, we're trying to paint a picture, a word picture, but you say it all the time, and that's the responsibility of ourselves to allow God to fill that. And then when you receive what you receive from your spouse, it becomes overflow.
Right. And so, that was my first red flag in that, is just knowing that it's not his responsibility to make her happy. And so you got to let your husband off the hook for that. Now, with that being said, the whole point of this podcast is for people to have the marriage that they've always wanted, and they want to have a good marriage, and they want to be healthy, and they want to enjoy each other's company. And so that, that is definitely a part of it. But I don't think it's fair to dive into what he can do differently without saying,
yeah, you have to address that it could be a lot of the other spouse that has that feeling of something's wrong, something's wrong.
Right.
A lot of it could be
Yeah, because that was totally me.
right.
I was expecting you to fix something that was wrong in me that had nothing to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you were not created for that.
Right.
And so the constant, you don't make me happy. You know, if you would do this, then I would just be happy. If you could do this, then I would be happy. It doesn't matter what this man does. If it's something in her, he could be the best husband in the world. And I've said this on this podcast. You were the best. I mean, you're the best of the best of husbands. And the fact that you were the best of the best and I still was in need of more was the lack on my part and the lack in me. So let's just pretend that she's doing everything right. And what can he do to come alongside that?
Yep.
So we don't know. We
That's
can't
right.
pretend to know. And this same situation is happening all over the world. And so you get, with us being this broad, you get to insert yourself into where the problem might be in your marriage if you're feeling this. So that's the first thing, is the person who is unhappy, unfulfilled, doesn't have joy, is constantly frustrated. You got to look in you first. And so the other part would be,
And I would say, even before you move on from that, let's say that person does look inside them and say, no, you know, it really is. I think that there's something that's going on with my spouse and that part of the connection. So maybe it is like this question is true. So then that person that feels unhappy or unsatisfied or whatever, then it's their job to also, like this person has done, use their voice
right.
to say,
That's right.
hey, you know, I just think there's some things that we it can't be nagging and it can't be, oh, you never or you always. Don't use those words because they're not real to say never and always. But those are the things that if you can have a conversation where you can actually use your words and you can put, you know, you can put your finger on something. Hey, this is something that would really help our relationship. So that's going back to that person that's unhappy. But I think, like you said, we need to shift this conversation.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying is the transition from one, if that spouse is really in a healthy spot and she's using her voice and saying, hey, I'm unhappy, these things are bothersome, maybe we could try this, then that's when we need to have a great conversation, and that comes down to communication. And you saying you don't make me happy is not great communication.
No, it's awful.
It's awful because
I remember. I mean, I
Sure.
still to this
I know
day
you do.
remember, you know, times throughout our marriage in those first 15 years where you would just say, "I'm not happy," and like, I mean, that is the most crushing.
Yep.
Like, I still feel the pain from that.
But what the translation of that was, I need you to make me happy.
Yeah.
And that's not their job.
Right.
It's not their job. If you're saying, I'm not happy, you are telling, so if you tell your spouse, if you tell your kid, if you tell your boss, I'm not happy, what you're saying is, it's your job to make me happy.
That's right.
And that's not their job. It's not their job. But what you were saying, there needs to be some good communication on maybe things that could help
Right.
in the happiness department
Yeah.
of making your marriage better.
Well, let's also point this out. That, you know, I think we actually got two similar questions from the same person.
Okay.
And they even said, I have a really hard time loving my spouse well, or how do I do that? And I think that, I mean, even self-admitting that and being
Sure.
able to say, you know, hey, I don't know, there's something off, I guess, because my spouse is saying that it's off. And so maybe I don't know how to love my spouse
Right.
well and how they want. And like you were saying is there has to be some communication. But let's just say that there's not communication. we've talked about tools on here we talk about tools all the time of how you can love your spouse well. And of course, we've talked about the 5 love languages, and whether you're into all that or not doesn't matter. What it is you're finding out you are becoming an expert on your spouse. And when you're watching your spouse, you're paying attention to all of the things that they like, that they enjoy, the things that you do that make them happy, and you know what those things are, then you know how to love them well. The problem we fall into is that we try to love our spouse the way we want to be loved, and that's not what they need. And my guess is that this couple probably falls into that category, that the husband doesn't really know, because most men don't. Most men are pretty poor in this area. And so in the limited amount of emotional capacity that we believe we have a whole lot more than you think you do. You men, you have a whole lot more emotional capacity than you think you do. But for those that think that they're emotionally shallow and all that, they're giving just as much as they feel like they can give. And when they give that, they're doing what they want to be loved. And they don't understand, why does this not make you happy? It makes me happy. If you do that for me, I'm happy. And so you have to become an expert in your spouse. You have to find out, what is it that makes my spouse happy, and give her life or him life. And then those are the things that you do.
Yep. And that's good. And not only that, but I also think that those things can change.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's very important to just communicate with your spouse about what makes them happy and what they need in that.
I think that is one of the best points, because women, especially wives, you need to you need to constantly communicate with your spouse. And I'm not saying constantly just, here's my new list of the things that I need. It's not that. But Matt Chandler, one of our favorites, one of our favorite pastors, he has said in his sermons, he said, I've been married to 5 or 6 different women during the course of my one marriage to my wife, because
he said, I've been married to 5 or 6 different Laurens.
Yeah, that's right. 5 or 6. And when that changes, it's mind blowing for men, because you're like, well, wait a second. This was what you enjoyed, and this was what made you happy. But then all of a sudden a season changes and you're totally different, and we can't read your mind, but we can pay attention. And so, guys, and this is for this person that wrote in and asked this question, I would recommend, this is a very, very practical thing. I would recommend that on your phone, you take a note on your phone, like in the notes section, and your wife's name. For me, it's becoming a Heather Bryant expert. And I take notes. I do. Like when we're shopping. Oh my gosh, I hate to shop. But when I'm forced to shop and we walk by and you see something, you're like, oh, that's cute. Well, I make a note, because I shouldn't have to come around and ask, hey, what do you want? Would you like this? Those are the things that I'm just taking notes, because I'm becoming an expert. I know what your favorite candy is. I know what you like from the ice cream store, those kind of things. And then when when they change, my notes change. I'll make new notes, or I'll put new notes in there. So that's a very practical thing, that if you're like, I don't know how to love my spouse well, the first thing to do is pay attention.
That's good. And I'm going to give as we close, I'm going to give a real life example of something that happened today.
All right.
So, as we mentioned at the beginning, today has been a really hard day for this mama, and I've had an emotional day. Dropping off Luke was harder than I thought it was going to be. It was just hard. And I have been full up to my eyeballs with emotion all day. We went to church this morning. I'm like, he's standing beside me worshiping. I'm like, oh, next week he won't be here. Just emotion, emotion, emotion. Fear, anxiety, sadness, all of the things. Well, one thing you have a tendency to do, and I know this about you, and this is how you are choosing to love me, is you try to make me feel better by telling funny things that are happening, or I bet Luke's going to do this, or he's going to get there and do this. And I mean, just encourage, encourage, encourage. Well, I was up to my eyeballs in emotion, and I just needed you to stop talking. I didn't need you to try to make me feel better. I just needed to sit in it a minute and just pray and cry out to the Lord and kind of give my up to my eyeballs emotions over to the Lord instead of letting them continue to pile up in me. So I knew you were trying to love me well. So there was no reason for me to be frustrated, but I was frustrated. I was frustrated at you. But then I was like, I don't know why I'm frustrated at him because he's trying to love me. So I just said to you, I need you to not talk. Like, I know that you're trying to help me, but this is the way you handle sadness, is you just kind of joke and, laugh and smile through it to get through it. And right now that's killing me. So I need you to just stop. And you handled it well. Well, you actually tried to make me laugh again by being zippity-doo-dah zipped over there. And we're being dramatic about it. And I was like, but you let me sit in it for a minute. And so I could have chosen to be unhappy with you and frustrated with you because of the way you were handling it. But when I really looked, I was like, he's trying to love me well. So instead of being frustrated with you, I just chose to say, hey, I love what you're trying to do, but it's not working. Like, I just need, and then I said what I needed. I said, I need you just to let me sit in it for a minute and be okay. So it's the example of, and the reason why I used that real life example from today is that I could have chosen to be unhappy and say, you're not making me happy. But instead, I know from years of walking through this that it's not your job to make me happy. And that if I really look, you're not trying to make me mad. You're trying to love me well. And so just speaking into that and using my voice and saying, hey, I don't need that right now. I just need to do this. Does that make sense? You're nodding, but my people on podcast can't see you nodding.
I'm being silent.
I need you to be quiet.
This is a podcast, though. It's really hard to be quiet on a podcast. But then that shuts down my voice, so I just have to go to the bathroom and tell myself jokes, I guess.
Why in the bathroom?
I don't know, because I
weird.
can look in a mirror and tell myself jokes. No, it was a great example. It really was. And I think that I didn't remember trying to make you laugh again. Maybe I did. Well, I wasn't trying to make you laugh. I just was really quiet. But actually, that was for our child because he was still in the car with us. So I was trying to be really like, okay, well, I just won't say anything. But you're right. You handled that well because you were like, this is not really what I need. But you didn't make me feel bad in the way that you did that. So, okay. So I hope that we were able to answer the question looking at it from a very, very broad perspective because we do not know what's going on in these people's lives or in their marriage. But for most marriages that have issues like this that come up, I hope we were able to kind of address both sides of it. And Pennsylvania, maybe you'll get a drawing. And we'll be as far away from Oregon as you can possibly get. West Coast to East Coast.
That's right.
It will be 3 time zones away if we do that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Hey, if you've just started listening to us recently, go back and catch up. There's all kinds of great topics about marriage. So we would love for you to tune in, catch up on that, and let us hear from you. We love hearing from our listeners. All right. Till next week. See you later. Peace.